Hello again everyone, Edwin Martin back once again. In this YouTube video segment, me dissertating and talking about the subject of being alone, and in particular how it applies and pertains to me. I've lived alone essentially a good part of my life. 1994, I moved out of New York, I moved to Nashville. I'm in Smyrna technically right now, but anyway. Basically, for all intents and purposes, I have been alone during this period. Sometimes I've had a roommate or something, and there's been other times where I would have a girlfriend, but it wouldn't work out because the girlfriend seemed to be avaricious and greedy, and it was about money. It was more about her needs, and mine didn't seem to equate were factored into the equation the way I felt it should have been. Recently I had talked with somebody on the phone, and it was somebody, I don't know if she was maliciously playing games with me, or she just felt like she was dominated by work maybe, and she didn't really want to be bothered much with me. And I finally had a talk with her, and I said, look, you keep giving me the brush off. You tell me first that call you back in a couple hours, which I did. Then all of a sudden you say, well, call me on the weekend, which was like 5 days from that time. I'll be less stressed and I won't have my studies to worry about. I mean, how long does it take to talk with someone on the phone just for a few minutes just to see how you're doing? And I basically said, you know what? I said to her, I don't need you if this is the way it's going to be. Sometimes you get tired of manipulated and feel like you're being controlled by people. I think what's happened is over the years I somewhat decided to be alone because some of the hurt that's happened with me in previous relationships, the fact I can't seem to find anybody that's going to be there for me. I mean, I could be there for somebody, but I think generosity has to be a mutual give and take. It has to come from both people. It can't just be all about me being magnanimous and the other person not willing to give hardly anything to me. Someone told me one time that no one's ever alone. Well, if you want to look at it from a spiritual, religious vantage point, that may be true. Maybe we have this supreme, omnipotent being that's around us at all times. But a lot of times the people be saying this have a significant other, and they're saying this to somebody that's in solitude and doesn't really have anybody. Would it be that easy for that person to say that if he or she didn't have somebody? I think it poses a good question. I look around and I say, well, a lot of the solitude is attributed to me. It's part of my lifestyle. I'm a somewhat introverted person. I have a number of limitations and restrictions in my life. I don't make an overabundance of money. I understand we're in a society that's dominated by greed and avarice, unfortunately, superficiality. What's become sad for me is that I've actually have more enjoyment when I go on the internet as opposed to going outside my own home. It's really sad it's come to that, but I've had more kinder, enjoyable experiences and interaction with people I've met just talking on the web as opposed to the people in my own community. I think what happens is in life there's a thing called a vicious cycle. You could be in a rut for a good part of your life. When I hit my early 30s, I think I became a certain way, I had a certain demeanor. And when you reach a certain point in life, a lot of times it's hard to get out of that. I guess you could say that rut, that cycle that you're in. I think things kind of become self-perpetuating. You're a certain person at a certain time, and all it does, it just carries over year to year, day to day, and you constantly, consistently do that same thing, that same ritual, that same routine day in and day out. And because you get acclimated to it, that's just the way it is. And there's some positives in being alone and having seclusion and solitude. Don't get me wrong, you don't have that other person that you have to worry about. you don't have to worry about those problems becoming yours. You could focus primarily on your problems, and that's it. No one else's predicaments or dilemmas come into play. Things are a lot less complex and complicated when you're just by yourself. So there are some positives in that. You only have to worry monetarily about yourself. There's no possible other financial hardship you may have to endure. The problem too is when you got to find somebody. I'm not a greedy person by any stretch of the means, but at the same time, I would say 90% chance I would need that other person to at least be working part-time, have a part-time job, because with the income that I make, I would not be able to take care of perhaps even a one-bedroom apartment, say, with me and the significant other, and pay all the other bills, pay for her food and mine with what I make. So I have an understanding that it's what society dictates. Unfortunately, it's almost paramount that you have to have both people working in society the way it dictates right now. And what happens is when one becomes alone and is by his or herself, I think it leads to a lot of introspection. It's a lot of self-evaluation. You spend a lot of time inside yourself. I'm not saying that's not always good. At least you get a good picture of what you're about. But I would say that when you look at yourself, and sometimes you may not always like what you see, you ponder yourself. Is there something that I've done wrong? Have I done something to deserve this? And most of the time, it's probably you haven't done anything to deserve that. A lot of times, if you're at a certain income level, it does play a role. I don't make an overabundance of money. I know that's been to my detriment over the years. Generally, women want somebody that's very financially stable and secure. Someone said to me one time, maybe a little over 20 years ago, said, I don't think he was trying to be real derogatory and mean, but he said, Eddie, you have nothing to offer these women. That's part of the reason why you're going to have a hard time. Now, I could say that I have substance to offer. I'm not talking about drug substance because I don't do that, but substance inside. And you could be affluent and rich inside, but a lot of times that doesn't go over today, not in society the way it is now. There'll be some people that will look beyond the surface and beyond the material means the person can offer him or her, but not many people are willing to penetrate the person and actually see the inside, delve into the inside of that human being as opposed to the outside. So I think that could be a problem for people as well sometimes. So the thing about it is you deal with things. I'm not going to ever jump off a cliff because of this, because I know that in my heart that I'm rich in a lot of ways. I'm not going to let life conquer or defeat me. Yes, I could be very despondent at times. This is not a lot of fun. When you look at other people and see, well, this person has this gorgeous woman, the epitome of beauty. Then I look at myself, I say, damn, I'm twice as old as this person. I don't even have anybody, really. But sometimes things are what they are. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I hope people don't become disenchanted by this, but I'm being honest, I didn't further my education after high school. I don't have any college experience or background. I have a high school diploma, but that's all that I have. And my grandparents were going to help me, put me through college, but because I refused, in certain ways I have nobody to blame but myself. I had my opportunity then, but I simply didn't capitalize on it, unfortunately. So we look at being alone, and like I stated before, one can become dejected, melancholy, and sad because of this. But on the other side of the coin, sometimes I just have to create distractions for myself. That's part of the reason why I do a lot of these videos, because it doesn't eradicate your problem, but it makes it causes that diversion, and it enables me to deal with it a little better. I have my coffee in the morning. That plays a role as well, and that kind of that doesn't eradicate completely, but kind of modifies whatever feelings of dejection I might be having. But at the same time, I'm not going to let the fact that I don't have that elusive love or that significant other necessarily define me. I know I define myself. I know what I'm about. I know what my attributes are. And if somebody wants to look at me and say, well, you don't have anybody in your life and you want to denigrate me or you want to put me down because of that, that's up to them. But at the same time, I do realize people on the outside looking in would say, well, gee, this guy's 43, going to be 44 years old soon, and he doesn't have anybody in his life. And that could be perceived as odd, and I do respect and understand. I think being strange or odd is very subjective, but at the same time, when in contrast to what the average person has, it does seem like, well, what's going on? Why doesn't he have anybody? And like I stated before, a lot of it is attributed to low income, and a lot of it is just due to the disappointments that had transpired in my life with women during my time, especially in the Nashville, Tennessee area. And at this point in time, being the fact I'm in my 40s, I know that it's not impossible, but I do realize it's a lot harder to find somebody right now as opposed to when I was in my early to mid 20s. So it doesn't make it insurmountable, but it makes it increasingly difficult at this point in time. And what's sad is you look at certain things, like you go to Match.com, and I don't know what the deal is now, but they had some special when I joined on about 3.5 years ago, and it said that you can get like 6 months free if you don't find that partner, that match within 6 months. But unfortunately, it doesn't give you that guarantee or assurance of actually finding somebody, period. Unfortunately, in many avenues in life, there are no guarantees or assurances, and it's one of those things where I have eventually I hope to find somebody, but if not, I will live with it. And like I stated before, I'm not going to let it conquer me. I'm not going to jump off a cliff because of it. But at the same time, life is not. It really for me is not as good being alone as opposed to having someone in it. Well, anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube segment. And this is Edwin Leonard. Until next time, stay well.